when the Kohanim would prepare to do their avodah, to do their work in the Mishkan, they would first have to ritually cleanse themselves. And after all, the act of the Kohanim, the work that they did in the Mishkan, was a kapara, was an atonement for the sins of the Jewish people and for their own personal sins. So they had to make sure that they were ritually clean, but also spiritually clean. The way in which they made sure that they were ritually clean was they went over to the kior. The kior was the laver. It was like a big tank of water. And this kior had a spout on it, and they would wash their hands and their feet. Now, as they washed their hands and their feet, they'd have to, in order to get the spout to give water, they would have to look at the kior. The kior on the outside, this laver on the outside, was composed of what's called the maros hatzovos. Maros hatzovos were mirrors. These were mirrors that Moshe was mesupak. Moshe doubted. He wasn't sure if they should be included in the Mishkan. And that's because these mirrors were used by the women, the Nashim Titkanios, the righteous women in Egypt, when their husbands came home from the hard day's work as slaves in Mitzrayim, and they had no energy, they had no spirit, they had no hope. The women used these mirrors to play with their husbands, to look at each other with the mirrors and look at each other together and really entice their husbands and give them a sense of energy and a sense of hope, which gave them the desire to procreate and to continue the legacy of the Jewish people that allowed us to be a multitude when we left Mitzrayim. So Hashem says to Moshe, these mirrors are very important to me. Please, they're beloved to me. Please put them on the kior. Now, why was it the kior? Why this specific laver that these mirrors were placed? So the explanation is that when the Kohanim would come to wash their hands, they would look into the mirror and they would see themselves. And when they would see themselves while they were ritually becoming pure and clean by washing their hands, on a spiritual level, by being able to see their faces, they were able to look into themselves and be able to sort of spiritually cleanse themselves as well. The Magid Mimezrich explains that for us, we also have maros tzovos, we also have mirrors. But the mirrors that we have may not be a physical mirror that we look at in our homes, but the mirrors that we have that could have the same impact that it did on the Kohanim in the Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash, the mirrors that we have are other people. That when we look at other people and their behavior and their activity, we reflect upon ourselves and we think about the way that we act and the things that we do. So as an example, if I'm standing in the supermarket and I'm behind someone in line, and this person, I look at the way that this person is acting with the cashier, and they're acting rather obnoxious. And the reason why the person is being nasty to the cashier is because the cashier, the previous person who was waiting online, had taken a long time. And the person in front of me, they're in a rush. They clearly say, look, I needed to be out of here already. I have an appointment. And so I look at that person and I say, well, why are you blaming the cashier? Why are you being nasty to the cashier? I don't understand. It's not their fault. They didn't do anything. And even the person who was before you, so maybe they were a little bit slower. If you don't have time to be at the supermarket, then why did you go in the first place? And so I'm looking critically at this individual in front of me who's not treating someone else the right way. So the Magid Medrash says that when I'm looking at this person, I'm being critical of them and I'm analyzing them and assessing their behavior. What I really should be doing is assessing my own behavior. In other words, how would I act if I were in their position? What would happen if I was late to an appointment and I'm standing in the supermarket and I'm late, I'm running late? How am I going to treat the cashier that is there? What happens to me in general when I'm not patient or I get excited or I get annoyed by something? How would I act? How do I act? And because of that, this individual who wasn't acting correctly or nicely to the cashier, that individual really served as my mirror, the mirror of myself, to be able to learn about myself, the way I act in certain predicaments, and hopefully serve as a vehicle for me to grow. And that was what the Mishkan was about. The Mishkan was about the Jewish people being able to grow in their relationship with Hashem. The way we grow in our relationship with Hashem is to grow in our relationship with ourselves, with our relationship with other people, and to learn more about who we are and how we tick every single day. So the Kohanim, they looked in those mirrors that were on the laver to analyze themselves, to look deep inside and spiritually cleanse themselves. We, as the Maggid says, we could look at other people. When we do so negatively, we could also, or critically, we could also use them as mirrors to look at our very own behavior. Maybe not be so judgmental of them, but be able to grow in our own way each and every day. Thank you for listening, and have a good Shabbos.